Ready to go? All right. We're going to go ahead and call the Estacada Planning Commission meeting to order Wednesday, November 20th, a little after 2 o'clock. First off, I'm going to apologize. I'm working on a cold here. And so if I'm sniffling and coughing, I do apologize and try not to make it a big distraction throughout the meeting. We have 4 members. Well, actually, let's do a roll call and then we'll figure out who exactly is present. So
Commissioner Sager,
I'm here.
Commissioner Stahl,
Here.
Chair Wheeler.
here.
Commissioner Perkins.
Here.
We're missing Commissioner Carpenter, Commissioner Hartwig, and Commissioner Tucker.
Okay, so it looks like we have a quorum, so we can do official planning business. Welcome, everybody. We don't normally get this many people to a planning commission meeting, so either we're in for it or
We trouble.
I don't know what the other option is. We might just be in for it. First item of business we have is for the approval of the October 16th, 2024 meeting minutes, which are in our packet.
Go
ahead.
I moved to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
We got a motion. We have a second. Do we need to discuss? Tara, I'm going to check in with you periodically.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of those meeting minutes, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting minutes are approved. Item number 4 is the commission business. Doesn't look like we have any. And we'll move on to the public hearings. So the way this will work is we'll go open each of these public hearings up and we will have the staff present their report. We have an opportunity as a planning commission to ask some questions. At that point in time, we'll typically close down that public or the planning staff report, and we'll open a public hearing, of which I have some names on papers here that would like to speak for one or the other. At that point, that's the opportunity for people in the crowd to speak. We'll shut down that public hearing, and then we'll jump back into the planning commission meeting to make a decision. So with that being said, we're going to go through our first one here. It's a zone change 2023-02-ZC for the community center. And Alan, is this yours?
Take it away. Yep.
All right, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. So I'll be presenting our staff report for this zone change for the community center. Okay, and the applicant is City of Estacada. So the city is actually submitted the application for this. And I'll just give a little bit of background information first, so we know why we're doing this. So in early 2023, a business license application for a small computer repair business at Estacada Community Center was submitted. And at that time, staff discovered that the community center property is zoned R1 and commercial uses require a conditional use approval in the R1 zone. We looked into it. We found no evidence that the community center had ever submitted or received conditional use approval to allow businesses to operate there. And so at the council meeting in September of 2023, staff recommended that the community center property be rezoned to downtown to allow for commercial uses, which have been operating there for decades. At that time, the council voted unanimously to allow the city to initiate the zone change process without requiring the community center representatives to submit the application or to pay the fee. And so with that background, proposal is basically a comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment to change the designation from R1 to downtown. It would involve one property, which is the current community center site, and all city services, water, sewer, and storm are currently provided there now. Go on. So this is the subject site. You can see it's right between the river and the highway to the north, and it's just southwest of City Hall. So it's just kind of basically right over there. And this is from the comprehensive plan map. So you can see that it's surrounded by property zoned R3, which is our multifamily residential. That's the orange, and then the yellow and the white and pink crosshatch, that is downtown. And the property outlined in green is the community center property. And so instead of being an R1 outlier in this higher density mixed use zone, that property would be zoned downtown. And so looking at the zone change criteria, it meets the statewide planning goals. So this goal 9, economic development, it requires local jurisdictions to provide enough land to realize economic growth and development opportunities. So this proposed zone change from R1 to downtown would clarify that the community center is an appropriate site for use by small local businesses and facilitate the permitting of those businesses on that property. And the zone change also meets transportation-related criteria in our Estacada Municipal Code. The city engineer finds that the proposed zone change will not have a significant effect on the surrounding transportation system. And it also meets the criteria in city code related to the transportation planning rule, the Oregon Highway Plan, and our concurrency chapter 16.74. It also meets applicable comprehensive plan goals for the city. Specifically, it supports chapter 7 on economic development. And I'll talk a little bit about that chapter now. So there are 2 policies in the comprehensive plan goal, number 7, that support the zone change. And that's general policy 6, which is to position Estacada as a supportive and responsive business environment. There's also a goal specifically for downtown, that's goal 2, to establish a mix of office, service, retail, light manufacturing, and governmental uses, as well as compatible residential uses. And so the zone change would clarify that the community center, as I said before, is an appropriate site for use by small local office, service, and retail businesses, and would facilitate permitting such businesses on that property. And so staff recommendation is to approve the zone change, and there are no recommended conditions of approval. And with that, next steps, public comment, then commission can ask questions and discuss, and then we'll be looking for a motion to recommend approval, approval with changes, or denial of findings.
And is this our decision outright, or is it go to the city council?
It goes to city council.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any questions for planning staff at this point in time? Tara, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Since we don't have any questions, thank you for that staff report. Let's go ahead and we will jump into the public hearing. I'm going to read a statement about evidence presented at the hearing. That should suffice for both this public hearing and the next one. So if you're not commenting on this one, but the next one, maybe perk up yours a little bit and it'll save us a little bit of time. An issue which may be the basis for appeal to the city council must be raised prior to the close of the record of the final evidentiary hearing on the specific application. Such issues shall be raised with sufficient specificity as to afford the city council and the parties adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure of an issue to be raised at the hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide sufficient specificity to afford the city council and parties adequate opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the city council on that issue. So with that being said, we will ask anybody in the audience that would like to come up to the mic. We're going to introduce ourselves, give your address, and then go ahead and we're going to limit 3 minutes to speak each speaker on these public hearings. And if there's nobody that wants to speak on this one, we can just move on. It doesn't appear like anybody's jumping up, so that's good. Do we have anybody online? This is going way too smooth. Okay. We're going to go ahead and exit the public hearing then, and we're going to go back into the planning commission meeting, at which point we get to make a motion and a recommendation. Once we get a motion in a second, of course, we can discuss.
I put the motion options on the screen. In case you.
I'm just looking for the proper code so I don't get caught in the weeds here. Right here. Okay, I'm going to move to approve 2023-02 ZC as proposed by staff.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Do we need any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Discuss.
My issue here is, okay, I understand this has been years going. I know that. Now we're changing this to the senior center. That's, because I can live with that. What about the houses around it? Are they going to automatically get shoved into that?
No.
Somebody's going to come down and say, okay, here is the problem. That restaurant now is reopened, or it's going to open up as a business.
The
So
which
you're gonna have
restaurant are you
business.
speak, which restaurant are you speaking?
Over here.
Okay, on the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got this and you got the senior, the same, right? That's what we going for. You're gonna have this house right in the middle of it. Are they going to be made to be put in, change? Or are we gonna leave them alone? Or we're gonna make them do it? What? I see, when we do stuff, we always don't leave an open gap. And there's an open gap there, because you got Mrs. here, and now you got the senior center there too, but you got a house right here. Are you gonna make them be a business? I don't understand how we can say, okay, let's just change what we're doing. I don't know. I don't understand, and I can't vote for it, and I'm guilty by not coming in
Well,
and talking to the staff about it, but
I'll take
I-
a stab at some of your question.
go for it.
I don't think we can force, or the city cannot force anybody to rezone their property. So the one house you're talking about, I don't think they can stay a residential house as long as they feel.
But if you're going, so you're going to put, go to commercial, are they going to feel weird?
I don't,
I think I would.
well, I think we're just making the because community center right now is not R1. It's not a single family residential home.
Right. I know that.
It's always been a business of some sort, or a community center.
Bill's is a Forest Service building. I've been here all that time, so I understand that. Am I against any changes down there? No. My problem is,
Give me if I'm wrong, but you're trying to say you're kind of against doing this in a piecemeal manner like this proposal
Exactly.
is. But, as we build density out there, and we're going to have to shift our zoning needs as we need them,
Right.
and we're going to get a lot more of these piecemeal actions.
Well-
If the rest of that R1 zone in there, or whatever zoning that is around the community center is, if the need changes, then we're going to have to rezone to meet that need at some point. This isn't that point. This is
And I
just a
realize
very
it's not
specific
that
use thing, yeah.
but again, as everybody's probably seen, I was talking before the meeting.
Sure.
I had a problem with the industrial park. Because we worked many hours making that an industrial park, not a commercial land.
Mhm.
Well, now we changed what did you call that? We changed the code.
Yes, we changed the
And-
code was amended, yeah.
And then, so by changing one thing, it continued to another.
Mhm.
And
Well, and that's
So-
why we're here, so that we can adjust and have an independent body that looks at these things that the city or landowners bring to us and
you're right, we are here for that, but.
We're,
when are
we're
we
just,
going to
we're talking
adjust?
about one specific use here on a property that's already not a house.
Yeah.
And all the neighbors around it would have been noticed about this zoning change in this meeting, and there's nobody in here raising issue with with this. I mean, I get what you're saying, Tom, but I just don't think this is a very significant
So
change at
who
all
gets
from,
the-
I'm still talking.
Okay, who
From-
gets,
I'm-
who gets a notice?
we
I don't
noticed
know what,
It's
Go ahead.
300 feet from
Yeah,
the
see,
border. So,
nobody gets a notice.
well, it's also
Okay.
noticed in the
And
paper
it's
in the
usually a-
300
no-
feet around, every property owner within 300 feet of the
Yeah,
property.
but it's,
Yeah.
but that's, it's at the property owner living now. Yeah.
Tom, I'd just like to finish a thought.
Go ahead.
There's nobody who has been noticed, either who received the mail notice or who would have seen it in the paper or online or any of the other places has raised an issue. We're not taking someone's house and turning it into a business. This is already a public building that is having public usage and regular traffic. It has a parking lot. There's no major change going on here at all. And it doesn't have, it's not making any decisions about any of the properties nearby. No one's being forced to do anything. So I don't think we can
I
make
understand what
projections.
you're saying.
I don't think we can make projections about properties what might happen to these properties in the future with this minor change on this. I mean, to me, it's like we hear your concern. I don't know what other talking about it needs to happen at this point.
So you want me to shut up, right? Okay.
No,
Yeah, that's exactly what she just said. Okay.
but think of it like this though, too, Tom, that building there, you know, what the city is trying to do, and I see
I
it.
know what's going on. I'm not,
Okay.
yeah, like I said, if it's legal, fine. That, I have no problems with that.
Okay.
But my problem is, it just it does come back at the neighbors somehow. You know, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen.
Okay.
And as far as I care, I got the lecture from her, okay? I've got many good answers from you guys.
Yeah.
So I'm done.
Okay, let's vote. All those in favor of this approval, raise your right hand or say aye. Opposed? Abstained? One abstain. Passes 3-0. Okay. All right, we're gonna move, oh, excuse me, word salad there. Let's move on to the next one.
All right.
Subdivision 2024-03-S. Ammon Heights. We'll go ahead and have the staff report presented here. Same process. We'll go have an opportunity to ask questions, open the public hearing for public comment, of which we have some speaker request forms for. And then we'll close the public hearing and go back into our decision-making planning commission meeting.
Oh. Okay, hold on just a second. I am pulling this up. This report is quite a bit longer than that last one. I expect every part of this process is going to be a bit longer than. Okay. All right, so this is staff's report to the planning commission on 2024-03-S, the Ammon Heights subdivision with variances application. Okay, the applicant is William Highlands and the consultant is Sissel Engineering. Both of them are in attendance today, and I expect that one or both of them will want to come up and also present some material. So the proposal is residential subdivision with 2 variances requested, which I'll go into much greater depth later. It's for 12 single-family detached lots on a 3.2 acre site on a site that's zoned R2, which is our medium density residential zone. And for some pictures. So here's an aerial shot. The subject site is outlined in blue there. And the lines are topographical lines. So that's showing the elevation in feet. And so we can see that there's, it's on a hill and there's pretty substantial slope here. Where it's about a 130-foot elevation gain between from the southwest corner to the northeast corner. And we'll zoom in a little bit more here. And so this is a graphic from the recent property line adjustment that was approved by the city. So from these two lots, one lot two lots will be created, but one will be the single property on which the 12 new lots would be created. So that's basically, can you see oh, you can, great. So it's basically, I'm just going to trace it here. So just this big part of the lot here. That small parcel in the southwest corner is not included in this application. Okay. And so this is from our comprehensive plan map. Subject site is outlined in red there. And so you see the pale yellow is R1, that's our low density residential. The bright yellow is R2, that's our medium density residential. So it's mostly residential area. And then you see off to the west there is downtown. And so here is a shot of the preliminary plan. Yeah, there's 12 lots here. I'll just do the rounds. So here's 1 through 12, all these here. And then proposal is for a new road called Southeast Panics Place to be created. So this here is the public street section, the curb section. The public section ends in a hammerhead here as a turnaround as required by the fire department. And then there's a small private roadway here that would serve these 5 northernmost properties here. And here this is an attempt to show it a little bit more close up. I had to lay it on its side. So you can see the north is pointing left there. But yeah, this is a little bit bigger picture. And I know that the applicant team is going to come up and they'll do a more in-depth presentation using their own shots from the preliminary plan. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the variance request first. There are 2 requests, and the first one regards the width and design of the public section of the new street, Southeast Panics Place. And so here is the neighborhood local street cross-section alternative design. So that includes 2 10-foot wide drive lanes, a 7-foot parking lane, and then 2 5-foot sidewalks on either side. And so the variance request is to only build a sidewalk on the west side of the street. And the second variance is it regards maximum slope allowed for streets in the city. And so the standard for grades and curves is that grades shall not exceed 6% on arterial streets, 10% on collector streets, or 12% on other streets. So this would be considered an other street as it's a neighborhood local street. And so the request here is to allow the street grade of Southeast Panics Place generally to exceed the 12% maximum. And so in the staff report, if anyone read it, I hope the planning commission read it, there are different reasons for the requests. And so I dealt with these requests separately in the report. But for the sake of time, I'm going to present them together as our recommendation is the same. And so we'll jump into the variance criteria. So the city has a code section specifically for variance requests. The first section here states when variances cannot be approved. And so section A says, the preface, no variance shall be granted under the following conditions. Section A, to allow the use of a property for a purpose not authorized within the zone in which the proposed use would be located. And so the applicant intends to create residential lots in a residential zone, which is allowed outright, and so section A does not apply. Section B says to increase building height more than 10% higher than is otherwise permitted in this title, and then there's some exception language there. And so the applicant is not proposing to build structures that exceed height limits, so section B doesn't apply. And so because these sections don't apply, the criteria for this section are met, and we can move on to the next section. All right, so this section is a little trickier. It says that a variance may be granted only in the event that either subsection A or B of this section applies and subsection C and D of this section must be satisfied. So that is to say that either A or B plus C and D must apply for the variance requests to be valid. And so now we're going to be making sure that some or all of the following criteria do apply. Okay, and we'll start with A and B. So if either of these subsections apply, then we can move forward. So the first one says exceptional or extraordinary circumstances apply to the property, which do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone or vicinity and result from lot size or shape, topography, or other circumstances over which the owners of property, since enactment of the ordinance, have had no control. And B says the variance is necessary so that the applicant can enjoy a property right, the nature of which owners of other property in the same zone or vicinity possess. And so for letter A, the applicant claims that the variances are necessary because of existing slopes on site, as well as the lack of connectivity to surrounding streets to the north, west, and east. And staff finds that these circumstances do result from circumstances over which the owner of the property has had no control, and that they are exceptional circumstances. So subsection A does apply. And as for B, staff finds that the variances are necessary to allow the applicant to enjoy a property right which owners of other properties in the same vicinity possess. So subsection B also applies, and we can move on to C and D. Okay, so both of these subsections need to apply in order for the variances to be valid. So section C says the variance would not be materially detrimental to the purpose of this title, that's Title 16, the Development Code, or to property in the zone or vicinity in which the property is located, or otherwise conflict with the objectives of any city plan or policy. So after careful review, staff agrees and finds that these variances would not be materially detrimental to the purpose of this title, or to property in the zone or vicinity in which the property is located, or otherwise conflict with the objectives of any city plan or policy. So subsection C applies. And D reads, the hardship is not self-imposed and the variance requested is the minimum variance which would alleviate the hardship. And staff finds that the variances requested are the minimum variances which would alleviate the hardships. So subsection D applies. And since all 4 of the subsections apply to the 2 variance requests, the criteria for section 16-100 are met, and the circumstances for granting both variances are met. There's one recommended condition of approval to these variances that I'd like to go over. And that is, okay. So the background here is since subdivision plats need to be submitted within 4 years of subdivision approval, and the approval of this subdivision application depends on the granting of these variances, staff recommends that the Planning Commission exercise its power to extend the authorization of these variances to one additional year for a total of 3 years. The code only allows Planning Commission to extend 1 year. Otherwise, we would have recommended 2 years so that it would match the timeframe of the subdivision approval. So
Alan, before you move on, just
Yeah,
to
sure.
be clear, so
Yeah.
the variances will expire after 3 years, but the subdivision is 4 years?
So with this condition of approval, it would be 3 years. Without this condition, it would be 2 years.
Okay.
But that's
And then once the construction is substantially complete, obviously they would not need to re-up the variance.
Russ, yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so if the Planning Commission agrees to this recommendation, this is how the condition will read. So basically just lengthening it from 2 to 3 years. And now with these variances in mind, I will go over the street designs. All right, so this is the public street section for Panics Place. Yeah, let's see. So we have a 27-foot curb to curb width here. So it's the paved width, which includes 2 drive lanes and 1 parking lane, and then 1 5-foot sidewalk on the west side. So as you can see, the sidewalk that would normally be required on the east side is not included here. And then a retaining wall on the east side. Okay, and going north from the public street side, it terminates in this hammerhead. Right, so this is looking east now. So we've got a 20-foot width there. I believe it's about 120 feet wide. Yeah, it's a pretty simple design there. And then looking at the private road section, again, this is looking north. And so we've got a 20-foot paved section and no sidewalks on either side of this private section. So the driveways for the 5 properties that this roadway would serve would basically tie right into the private roadway. And then there are street improvements required for the north side of Southeast 4th. Just the area that's fronting the subject site. And they will be constructed to these half-street improvement standards. So we've got a 17-foot paved section, a 5-foot sidewalk there, and then a 4-foot landscape wall. And again, that's looking east. Okay, so on to staff's recommendation. Staff finds that the modification proposal, I'm sorry, that the subdivision proposal can meet all applicable approval criteria and recommends approval subject to the conditions listed in the report. And just to kind of sum up some of the major points of those conditions, all public improvements will be provided, streets and sidewalks will be built to those modified but acceptable standards. A 10-foot public utilities easement will be required at the frontage of all properties, of all new lots. Stormwater will be adequately managed. Water and sewer service will be extended from Southeast 4th, and the fire code will be met. And with that, move on to public comment. Any planning commission questions, discussion? And then we'll be looking for motion to recommend approval with changes, or denial with findings.
Question on the 10-foot public utility easement, because we're deleting the sidewalks, typically that's 5 foot that's included, right?
Sometimes.
And so then you'd just having the overlay is still the same. There's just no sidewalk essentially, right?
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
it complicate things when there's a retaining wall there as far as utilities go and you got utilities running on the
Yeah,
top
that's a
or
good question.
bottom retaining wall?
Neither the Public Works Director or the city engineer raised any questions about that. I can find that out for you, but I can't answer that
Okay.
myself. But yeah, I can write that down.
Well, planning commission, is there any questions for staff at this point in time? Terry, you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I'm just looking through all the engineered maps here real quick to
Mhm.
jog my memory of any questions that I had. There was the east facing look of Hannock's Place. Is it the same cross section looking north where it's not the hammerhead?
Yeah, let me go back to those. You're talking about the public?
There we go. So
Yeah.
you got, that's the one with the sidewalk and the retaining wall. So then go
Mhm.
to the next one,
So this is the hammerhead?
the hammerhead. And then there's the little private drive. Okay,
Yeah,
private road
that's the
section
private
looking
drive.
north.
And
Okay,
that's
perfect.
looking north, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So everything's the same. Curbs are striped red, no parking. And it's just two tight travel lanes that are
Yep.
for the,
That's right. Yeah, no parking on the private or the hammerhead. And then parking just on one side of the street for the public.
and then as far as where private starts and public ends, it looks like everything north of the north edge of the hammerhead is private.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just mix my stuff up. That's all right. All right, if we don't have any questions, let's go ahead and we will ask the applicant to come forward with the engineer and speak, give us a Reader's Digest version So I'm gonna go ahead and close down the planning commission meeting, open the public hearing. Again, that statement about evidence presented at the hearing I read earlier pertains to this. We'll have everybody that filled out a speaker request form to come up as soon as the applicant's done, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Chair Wheeler and Planning Commission members. I am Pat Sissel with Sissel Engineering, 375 Portland Avenue, Gladstone. And I'm here today with Bill Highlands, the owner. And I'm just got a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to step through and offer some comments to. The proposal, as staff mentioned, is to create a 12-lot subdivision on the site. The site has been approved or was approved for a 27-lot subdivision several years ago, Bird's Nest 2. All those lots were in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 5,500 square feet, and it had one road that basically bisected the site from 4th Avenue straight up the hill. And the city engineer sent me plans for that, and the road was at 15% from bottom of the hill to top of slope. It was still in a deep cut up at the top of the hill. It was in about a 10-foot hole, even though it was 15% bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. Next slide, please. I don't know who, are you controlling it, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll look your way then. And we believe the main reason this property hasn't been developed at this point is the terrain. Obviously, it's a slope site. The highest corner of the site is the northeast corner at elevation 706. The northwest corner, lower left on the screen here, is elevation 660. Next slide. The southeast corner, be the top right corner, is elevation 604, and the southwest corner is the lowest corner of the site at elevation 566. So if you look along the western property line, the average slope is about 14%, and on the eastern property line, the average slope's about 15.5%. So it's pretty even average slope across the site. We looked at several different development options for the site, considered multifamily. The issue with multifamily is you have a big building typically, and then you have big flat parking areas, and that just didn't fit very well with the terrain of the site. So we kind of pushed aside any thoughts of multifamily early on. Mr. Highlands envisioned a single family with fewer larger lots and not trying to get down near the minimum 5,000 square foot permitted by the zone. And next slide, please. So with that original development plan, or that Bird's Nest plan from a few years ago, as I mentioned, they had the road kind of centered in the middle of the site, and this is 4th Avenue. And what we looked at was pushing the road to the eastern side of the site, the uphill side, because we could gain 20 feet of elevation by doing so. And that improved the profile of the roadway considerably by moving it uphill 20 feet. And we looked at other options like doing private streets. In fact, when we came in for our pre-application meeting, we had a private street concept. And with private streets, you can go narrower because you don't have to do the sidewalks, but the code limits the number of lots served by a private street to 6. So the options were either to come in and request a variance from the Planning Commission for doubling the number of lots permitted on a private street, or doing 2 private streets potentially. But staff wasn't in favor of 2 private streets and creating 2 major intersections on this portion of 4th Avenue. Next slide, please. So we decided that the more appropriate design would be a public street. And rather than request the variance to double the number of lots on a private street, we decided to go with the public street and in order to minimize grading, to eliminate the sidewalk on the east side of the roadway. And we figured that was a better approach. There's not a lot of lots in this development, 12 lots total. One sidewalk should adequately serve the residents who are going to walk this street. Again, it's a slope street. And we believe that's going to reduce the amount of traffic that a sidewalk would see in this subdivision. So there is a turnaround located at the north line of lots 4 and 10. And that will end the public portion of the roadway. And beyond that point, the roadway is private. And per the fire department, that turnaround area needs to be limited to a 5% maximum slope. And if you look at our cross section that Alan showed earlier for that east looking view of the hammerhead, it is at 5%. And going to the profile for Panic's Place, next slide. So these are the street profiles that were submitted with the application. Next slide. Kind of focusing in on the Panic's Place subdivision. The lower right corner is where it ties in the 4th Avenue, and it goes up to 15% for a short section, and then it flattens out to about 12%. Up closer to the top, you can see it kind of flattens out again. That's where the hammerhead turnaround will be. And then beyond the hammerhead, it'll go back into 15%. And next slide, please. And this, I was hoping maybe you could read this, but from as far away as you are, I'm guessing you can't. I can't read it from here. But anyway, again, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, it goes from 0% into 15%. And then it tapers out of that 15 down to just over 12%. So we're requesting a variance to go up to 15%, but it's a short section of the roadway that's actually at 15%. Next slide, please. And we've already discussed this. So let's go on to the next one. So the big improvement that the neighborhood will see will be widening and the sidewalk along 4th Avenue. If you look at this plan, pretty much everything from, there's a storm drain line that kind of runs through the middle of the roadway, and everything north of that line will be new roadway that isn't there today. So it'll be a significant improvement for this area. The transportation system plan lists 2 high priority improvements for this portion of 4th Avenue. One is for roadway widening and the other is for the sidewalk. So this will go toward meeting 2 of those, a portion of 2 of those high important projects. Next slide, please. So this is the profile for 4th Avenue. And next slide. And at the lower end of the site, it's closer to about a 10% slope. And next slide. And at the upper end of the slide, 4th Avenue is just about a 21% slope. It's at like 20.9%. So again, we're requesting a variance for to get to a maximum of 15% for a little bit. 4th Avenue is built to a long portion of it from this development up past Oakview Lane is 20% or well over 15. And in doing development in other jurisdictions, there's a lot of jurisdictions that do permit a 15% slope outright in their code. And it's the cities that have terrain. For instance, Westland, Oregon City, Gladstone, those are all communities that allow 15% outright by code. Others limit it to 12, as Estacada does. So anyway, it's not an unheard of grade, and to mitigate for the ability to go to that steeper grade, all the homes on Panic's Place will be outfitted with fire sprinklers in the homes. That was agreed to with the fire department. So anyway, that is the end of my presentation. We feel that the project should be approved according to the staff report. I don't have any suggestions for changes to any of the conditions of approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions now or wait and come back later.
One question, since Oakview's directly east of there, what's the slope on it? Do you have any idea?
It looks like it's more than 12, but maybe not up to 15 at the steepest point. It's in looking at the surrounding streets, Oakview was over 12. It looked like Ginseng went up to 15. And in Fourth went up to just about 21.
Okay. All right. Planning Commission, do we have any questions for the applicant? Tara, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the your guys' additional info on that, and we might ask you to come back up here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now is the opportunity for us to go through the speaker request forms. And I think I got these in order. I got Jim, Patrick, and then Suzanne in that order. So if I could, I'll have Jim come up. Again, state your name, address, and we'll give you 3 minutes here to talk about the subdivision at hand.
Excellent, thank you. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is James Moriarty. I'm a resident on Southeast Oakview Lane. These are my concerns with this application, and I'm quoting from the application. Although having a grade of more than 15% would be preferable, the fire department was willing to accept a maximum of 15% if the new homes accessing the new street were equipped with fire sprinklers. The 15% maximum grade will still result in the same significant excavations at the upper end of the site, but the applicant and builder feel that the grading will work for the construction of new homes. I have a problem with the lack of accessibility for Estacada Fire Department to access this road. Panic's Place, especially the 5 northern homes on the north end of the property. The hammerhead design limits access of Estacada fire vehicles as opposed to cul-de-sac. And since Panic's Place will have a private drive north from the proposed hammerhead area, will Estacada Fire have access to these 5 houses? Because I know on some private roads, it's difficult for Estacada Fire. I remember what happened 4 years ago in Estacada, and obviously we don't want any to have to live through any type of that possible devastation again. So my question is, you're asking the surrounding neighborhoods, Fourth, Southeast Oakview, Ginseng, and Second, to have a second set of rules when it comes to firefighting standards. I have no issue with the fire department having access if they have to come in through my property to fight a fire, but it would just behoove that the fire department be able to access the property. The solution is to cut all the trees down and put sprinklers in these 12 houses. What about the Estacada Fire Department? that's unable to access due to a house fire or medical emergency at one of these upper residences. Does the Estacada Fire have to find another access point to these houses? And what happens or when the sprinkler system fails and the whole surrounding neighborhoods are damaged due to the lack of Estacada Fire access or a longer response time? Thank you. Appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you. Alan, you might have to help me with this. Will you point me into the part of the packet that the fire department commented?
Yeah.
Is it towards
Yeah,
staff?
it's one of the exhibits, so. Let me see. Actually, over here. Oh my, Lord, this is the. Okay. So on the very last page of the staff report, it lists out the exhibits, so. Fire Marshal comments, exhibit 10.
Go towards the back then.
Yeah, so let's see. I think it's just a page.
Bear with us. I just want to get that in my hands.
Okay, I got it.
No, it's not have it.
Evelyn, this one doesn't have. Mine only goes up to exhibit 7.
I think I messed up my order. Rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Can I borrow it from you?
Yeah.
I think there's more.
Is it all right if I read what the fire department wrote?
Yeah. Public record.
So this is in response to Alan asking out, agency partners on comment. Alan, the fire department has reviewed the following subdivision with variances and is willing to accept the variances. Proposed sprinkler systems installed on lots 1 through 12 on Panax Place. The hammerhead and public hydrant located at the end of Panax Place will, or with the 27-foot road width and section of road past the hammerhead that narrows. I would like to see posted no parking on at least one side of the road for the fire department to access lots 5 through 9. And I assume 5 through 9 are the top lots, right?
The bottom lots going up.
No, they're
No,
the
5 through 9 are the northern.
they're the
5.
top ones on the north
Oh.
on Panax Place
Oh,
or on the private section of Panax Place.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, for the, let's see what everybody else has to say and then we can have time to discuss. Does it sound all right?
sure.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Let's move on to Patrick or Suzanne. I don't know who handed theirs in first. You guys can arm wrestle over it and then the other one can go next.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Patrick Williams, I'm a resident on top of the hill of Oakview Lane, southeast Oakview Lane. I have a number of questions, but I gotta neck it down because I've already beaten the seconds here, but number one, I respect the fact that the man wants to build in that area, but I've lived up here over 8.5 years. And the effect that this whole thing's gonna have is just not gonna be on 1 or 2 residents that have been there paying taxes and living in the community for a long time. There's a lot of houses that surround that area. And we want to make sure that the quality of homes and the way the homes are built are going to be complementary to what's there. And we live on the north side at the top. And in that area there, there's a lot of pine trees that owls are in consistently. We have a lot of hummingbirds that use that area. And I know I read through this whole thing and I know they're gonna take a lot of the brush out, but to remove all those big trees, I think is a mistake. And I was looking at that first slide you showed when the engineer was up here. It looks like that road's gonna come in and kind of in the middle, if I remember right, and kind of wind up around the top. Is that slide available?
Yeah, let me pull that back up.
And
Share it again, hold on.
come on, Alan.
Oh, yeah. Can you pause this clock? Oh, you did, okay. Oh, come on. There we go, share. Okay.
The other one. Yeah, that's it.
Is that it? Yeah.
Could I get up here and show you something?
Sure.
So you can see. Is this the eastern side of the?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yep,
And then this before coming down. going
that's right.
west.
Yep.
So they're gonna propose to put this road in here like this. Now, along this upper edge here, there's about a 15-foot or not right of way, but there's a road there now that comes along here. And there's a huge amount of trees that are sitting up in this area. And, so I don't know what's gonna be taken out totally by you, or whether there's gonna be trees left in, and that's the question that I have, because those trees were valuable for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses. Okay, and then the other thing that I would tell you is that I'm not sure of the grading, that's your process, as an engineer, but it seems to me, in all likelihood, that this area along here would not disrupt a whole lot. And if it did, then maybe, we push the sidewalk up along this area here and push it down, give more room back there. And, again, I'm not an engineer. I live here. I love where I live. I like the country, or the city. But I think that there's to be some considerations taken to this. And like Jim said too, I would just add to that, during that fire up here in 2020, we were removed from our house for 2 weeks because that fire was stopped. I heard only 400 or 500 feet from this town.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be a part of that because of something happening over next door. That's not my main concern, but that's one of them. The other thing that I'd like to go ahead and address is that I didn't hear this. I see in that zone 2
Mhm.
that they can build numerous types of buildings. And that wasn't really brought out during the discussion here. I'd like to know what kind of buildings they're gonna put in there. And then the other thing that I'll leave, and I'll jump off here, but is what's the time frame on this construction? Because since I've lived up here 8 years in this area, before we moved from the other side of town, there's been continual construction. I realize that's just, the way things go.
Yeah.
But after maybe 4 years, that extension on where First Avenue is up on top, it just continues to go on and on. And, we value our time off, just like you do. We like to sit in our backyard. This directly faces that new construction. And like I said, I'm not blaming him for trying to do building and put a housing project in there, but I would hope that the city considers the fact that we've been here a long time. We love that area. And I'm not saying that they have to redo everything, but I think taking those trees down are important, and also the type of houses they put in that area.
Thanks for your
But,
comments.
Sorry, didn't mean to go too long.
No, you're all right.
Yeah.
I know as far as the city's concerned, again, the subdivision approval, if we choose to go that route, is 4 years. The variances are gonna be 3 years alongside that. Or with that, expiring 1 year before the subdivision application would. And so the process of going through a subdivision reapproval or extension, I guess it would be, they would have to come before this same body again. Isn't that right, Alan?
Yeah, they would have to, yeah. Subdivision extensions are approved. I think it's by planning commission, actually.
And they're 2 years, right? After the first 4
I
years?
believe so, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
I,
right.
for the sake of fees and construction costs always going up, I would imagine that the, applicant would want to get this done in this first 4 years. I can't take the words out of their mouth, but if they come back up, we'll have them speak to that. And I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Next up, we have Suzanne Williams.
I'm not as long-winded as my husband. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Suzanne Williams. I live at 201 Southeast Oakview Drive. And my biggest concern with this whole thing is there's a couple of things, is how 4th Street is so busy as it is, and just the people coming in and out from a new development into that. How's it gonna, visibility coming out, how's that all gonna play out? Because it's kind of a dangerous little place as it is,
Mhm.
how the traffic comes in and out. So that's my concern. My other concern, of course, for me is just all the trees. I mean, when we moved here, they said there's certain trees were never going to be moved, but yet, some of them have come down and now we have, I mean, it makes the whole area where we live, it makes it like pretty. They're big trees, they're old trees. I feed all the hummingbirds. There's a ton of hummingbirds that live there. And there's coyotes in there, there's skunks in there, and there's owls in there. And I hate to see their habitat go. So that's my concern. And that's all I have. Thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Evelyn, do we have anybody else that signed up? Okay, can we get the applicant or the engineer to come up and maybe address a couple of the things that were brought up? And then we'll, once we get that done, we'll go back into the public hearing, or excuse me, the planning commission meeting.
So again, Pat Sissel Engineering. Gonna take my glasses off so I can read my notes. So Jim's concern was primarily with fire department and fire department access. In meeting with the fire department and in talking to them since the pre-app meeting and going over the plans with them, they seem to be very satisfied with the proposal. The street will be parking one side only. It'll have adequate width for them to get up to the Hammerhead turnaround, which will be signed and painted and stenciled, a no parking zone. Obviously, it's a public street. Enforcement is required to make sure that it is it maintains itself as a no parking area. The homes will be fire sprinkled, which will be a big deal. So any fire starting in this area or in a home in this area should be knocked down and maintained and given the fire department adequate time to get there and respond. Obviously, a fire coming at this subdivision from offsite, like happened a few years ago, is the site can't control it anymore than any other subdivision can. But I don't see that with the fire sprinklers in the homes, I think that mitigates for any issues created by the additional street grade. Again, the fire department has to go on a steeper roadway to get into the site than they will be on once they get in the site.
Mhm.
And so I don't think the grade of Panic's Place, that little bit of the roadway, that'll be 15%. Now it's less than 100 feet of roadway that'll be at 15%. I don't see that having a big impact on response times for the fire department. Mr. Williams talked about the quality of home, or had questions about the quality of homes, and then the trees and the owls and the hummingbird area along that east line. So in our application, we said that very few trees will be retained. For the development of the subdivision, we're not going to go in and cut every tree down, but Mr. Highlands isn't going to be the builder, and builders have rights to go in and build a home that they want to build on the lots. He's been working with a local builder on this development. Whether that builder ends up building the homes in this development, we can't say that for sure. Mr. Highlands is hopeful that happens, but I would say that the quality of homes is going to be very similar to what you're seeing in other subdivisions in Estacada. It's not going to be a national builder that comes in here. It's going to be a local home builder. So I think the quality is going to be and that was one reason to provide bigger lots in this development. The 10,000 square foot lot leads itself to a little bigger home, a little more space. So that's the intent. And as far as the trees, again, I think, we're going to go in and clear the middle of the site to build roads and sewers and and clear enough the site to put in the utilities that have to be put in to support the homes. But we're not gonna go and take every tree off the property. That's not the intent. Now, I can say that the geotechnical engineer did find a spring, one spring on the site, and it was kind of up toward that northeast corner. So we are gonna have to run a storm drain line up to pick up that spring and get it tied into the storm drain system. That's about the only utility that needs to go up in that corner of the site. So other than that, that area will be pretty much left alone for the subdivision infrastructure.
Thank you for that. All right, we don't have anybody online, right, that's asking questions? Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to get up and speak on behalf or against this application? Go ahead. Mr. Highlands himself.
So anyway, I was just going to make a plug for looking to the future. If I had any public outlet, I think that northeast corner would be a beautiful place for a small public park. But I have no way to get anybody in there. And there's another house up Jim saying where, you know, if they had access from above, you know, the properties would develop much better. So I would just sort of encourage you to, you know, look for future improvements where things can happen, like, you know, some way to get out to Ginseng or, you know, way in for a public park. The Cazadero Heights Park, you know, have to walk through down a narrow fence line to get into a center thing. But that upper corner with the views is really terrific. And, you know, I now sort of feel the house at the top is sort of close to, you know, it, so it doesn't seem reasonable to even ask them to give public access. It would be such a detriment to the property. But, you know, having, you know, a half acre up there as it sort of levels out, you've got great views, great sky to look at, would be a wonderful feature to be able to do. But, you know, as the last guy coming in, I don't have that ability. And so I just thought, you know, I'd admonish the planning commission to try to reserve the possibility of such things, because I actually grew up on a place where Markham Nature Park actually went all the way from my house down into downtown Portland. So you could go walking, you know, down the sewer lines, you know, through the drainage and come out downtown. It'd be sort of nice for people, you know, actually to get to that public park, maybe an access way to Panex Place to walk down. It hopefully will look just great. We, you know, the lots up top actually go to almost 20,000 square feet. We tried to divide up the size of the lots so no one had too much elevation gain. So sort of on average, each lot was sort of level and maybe a little bit of retaining wall on the top and a little wet on the bottom. And so, you know, there's really quite a bit of room on the lots up above to get around. You know, it sort of seemed to be able to afford to build smaller at the bottom and then try to, you know, not pave over heaven and making it a parking lot as much as possible. This is a fairly minimal whatever, also trying to sort of minimize the elevation change on each lot, because a couple times we were doing things and I said, well, you just don't want this guy to have like a 40-foot elevation gain on his lot as he's trying to mow his lawn, you know. So there's a retaining wall shown on 4th Avenue. And I said, well, you know, first lot of the subdivision should, you know, have a retaining wall go up between, so you sort of separate things vertically. We also tried to keep all the outlets on 4th Avenue to a minimum, so you only have one lot with a driveway shared with the lot below us. Everything else will come out of Panex Place. We put a big radius on the bottom of Panex Place so it would open it up so you could have better visibility. We tried one thing and the city engineer encouraged us, as I said, to put in a 40-foot radius so that you could go in and sort of see it, because gravity is keeping that people coming down that 20% grade on 4th Avenue, you know, if their brakes go out, you know, gravity is going to keep them going. Anyway, William Highlands, 31625 Southeast Inman Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right. I think we've heard from the public. Let's go ahead and enter back into the planning commission meeting. Tara, you still with us?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Alan, if you could bring up our options here on what we got. And again, we're considering variances along with the subdivision application. Is that right, Alan?
That's right.
Do we
And
need to
so
vote
the
on them separately?
variance- Yeah, that's a good question. My thought was that you could recommend approval and your approval would carry over into the variances. So the planning commission is the final decision maker for variances. So when this goes to the council, assuming you recommend approval for the whole thing, then your approval of the variances would be part of that, and they wouldn't have to consider that. They would just consider the subdivision.
Okay.
So you wanted to
One without the other, I don't know. Jerk off.
Well, maybe we can get a motion to consider everything at once. Once
It's
you
saying
bring
that my
this up here.
screen sharing is paused, Evelyn. Do you know what that's about? That's strange. I mean, I can read those for you if you want. I'm having trouble pulling those up. Yeah, let me try to stop and do it again. Strange. Oh, that's too many presentations. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, well, I'm gonna pull up another presentation that has the same slide. Sorry about this.
While he's working, this will be approved with conditions that he's included and we modify and then,
Yeah.
a denial.
Go ahead and make a motion to consider both at the same time and then go ahead and move that way.
Sure.
If we can.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Okay. Still a little unclear. Do we need to do the variance separately or not?
We do not. You can just approve, or you can recommend approval for the whole application.
For the whole
and
package,
then
just in the same
that
way?
recommendation
Okay.
would, yeah. Would approval.
Okay, I move to approve subdivision 202403-S Ammon Heights as recommended by staff with the variances as recommended by staff.
We have a motion. And we'll need a second. For the record, I can't second anything. Or motion.
Was that
Uh,
a motion?
That was a
That was a
motion.
motion.
Okay, I second it.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. Tara, go ahead. You discuss
No.
something?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just opening it up, for anybody to speak. Here on the planning commission.
You ready?
Do you have any questions or
Sure,
discussion?
definitely.
Okay, let's discuss.
Okay. So on the review, talking. What happened to, again, I'm asking you, what happened to the limitation of private roads if we don't need them? Or is that one of those things that's in the books now and we just do it?
I'm not quite sure I understand.
I know you knew, so, but years ago, we kind of put a stipulation on private roads because there was nobody really maintaining the private road. And there was always, like the one up here, there was always fighting because people were parking in the middle of the road. You know,
I remember you bringing this up years and years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
And I mean, I can think of several, subdivisions that have been,
But I
Approved.
understand that, but what got me clicking on this thing is he said they could have put more more private, more cars on that private road, or more houses on that private road. Do we have a limitation on that part?
6.
Or are they going to stick with what they just told us?
I think the limitation is 6, right, Alan?
For the number of lots that can be fed off of a private road.
Right.
I'm looking in the code for that. I don't,
I think that was something you mentioned in the staff report that we would have. Or
there's just 5, they're proposing 5 lots. As for a limitation as to how many, I'm looking through.
And maybe it was the engineer that had mentioned that there was,
Perhaps,
the
yeah.
original design was 2 private roads that fed 6 lots apiece.
Right.
I see, okay, yeah,
And
I
that's
don't see a
what-
limitation for that.
shouldn't have
in the
said that.
development code.
Well, the evolution of that, Tom, though, is that the Escalated Development Code has been drastically lacking from surrounding jurisdictions for eons.
So we don't have to be like somebody else.
Well, we do when we put our big boy pants on and we start developing things and
I'm kidding.
we do. And so we have to,
Okay, but then my real question here is, they saying 5, but it could go to 6. They can't go any higher, right?
Well, yeah, so their proposal, when they go to plat, when they go to finally like make the layout, their design official, it has to look almost exactly to what they're proposing.
Okay.
So if they came back and they're like, oh, actually 10 lots are gonna be fed by that would not pass the city's review
And
for
so
that.
that was, you would stop that kind of, or.
I would stop that.
Question.
That's right, yeah.
I'm just asking.
No,
so-
no, it's a good question. So the city does a really thorough review. We send back, like, once they send their preliminary plat to us, goes back to the engineer, goes back to Public Works, goes back to planning, goes to fire, goes to Sadie at the finance, so we are all, there's a lot of eyes on that. And we do a very thorough review to make sure that what they are proposing is what we will approve.
So, okay, next question I have of that is to talking about the trees and the wildlife, okay? We all cared about the wildlife. So my question there is, do we have a way of making sure the wildlife got their home too?
That's a great question, and the answer is really simple, and that's no. We don't have anything in our code that protects trees or like has any like wildlife considerations in
so-
it.
What do you
Yeah.
think? Is that far fetched, or should we start talking about that?
what about like developing a tree code or something of that nature?
Well, worrying about the wildlife,
Yes.
or do you want us to get rid of them? I don't know.
No,
You want my honest opinion?
No, my
I
wife,
don't know if you're ready for it.
my wife, likes the little birdies, she's got them all over the house, so outside. But, and they aren't that bad, but we don't wanna cut the trees out knowing that there's a family up there. So that might be something we should think about. Okay, I don't know, obviously it's too late to do anything about it. Most of
Yeah,
the subdivisions are done.
As it pertains to this one, it's water under the bridge. but
Right, exactly.
As somebody that develops and builds houses, the first thing I do when I go into a property is I tell everybody to cut the trees down around their house because they're building a nice new house and they don't want gutters and things plugged up and branches coming through it when we get a
Right.
storm like last night and everything else. And as you go in there and you develop a lot, you disturb all the tree roots and it's either gonna die in a year or 3 or 4 years as soon as you cut through the root.
I
So
understand that.
it's real easy to cut it down when the lot's empty.
When I
It's
bought
very
my-
expensive when it's
I
not.
bought my house, the first thing I did was cut a tree down.
So
So-
there's definitely jurisdictions that have tree codes, West Lynn, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, and it's burdensome. It's counterproductive to anything affordable housing related because as soon as you get another layer of that bureaucracy, it's insane.
Yeah.
And so in light of the big boy pants comment of developing street code and private drives, that's, you know, the next evolution. I don't ever want to get there in the city of Estacada because I think it's a major overstep on jurisdictions, but it is part of development codes in some of these bigger, more affluent jurisdictions. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that was a lot of words.
I had a thought.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, I was really happy to get a proposal where it's already in an area. It's a small lot. I'm psyched to see Bill making use of a lot in an area that already has development around it, and you know, that we're kind of doing infill to deal with the housing shortage rather than blasting through the open lands in the outer areas of Estacada. And then when, you know, when the neighbors talked about the tree stuff, of course, I have a lot of empathy for that, you know, for quality of life for them, for the people that already live there, and for the animals. And I mean, I think that, you know, the engineer said, as the engineer said, the builder is within their right to cut the trees down, which is totally true. But as Bill commented, these lots are larger. There may be room to keep some of those trees, and when people are coming in to develop areas that are already inhabited, it is nice to take, whether you have to or not, it's nice to take the quality of life of the people that already live there into account. So I think it would be, you know, of course we can't at this point be like, save the skunks in these trees, but it would be great. You know, I think Bill heard it. He commented on it. If that could, as much as possible, be part of the conversations with builders. That's my.
Okay, back to my comments. The other thing is, I apologize to you guys for laughing at you. 'Cause, one side is not being able to stop, I mean, park on the side of the street. Nobody's going to enforce that. So you can put no parking signs as long as you like. No one's going to say a thing. You know, we're down here at Elm Street, no parking. Police officers drive right by. No, okay. So nobody's going to do that. So we have to look at it ahead of time. How can we make sure that don't happen? Because the city staff don't have time for me to call, hey, come on, get from your desk, go get somebody down here. You know, no, that it's not right. So no parking on one side is a good idea, but you tell the public that. Okay, the other thing I have is the sidewalks. Okay, I understand. They do one sidewalk on one side. Okay, now we fought, and the industrial area people argue with us, but we made them put sidewalks in. Are they going to use the sidewalk on that in the industrial area? No. But we made them. We required them to. We didn't make them. So they probably right. They probably one sidewalk on one side would be fine. I got that on my street. And so the only thing we need to look on the bad is the no parking on one side. How do we fix that? Okay, we put it up all the time, but nobody listens to it. However, more my welcome out here today. I'm sorry.
I understand what you're
I'm
talking
done.
about, Tom. you know, what really, the no parking on one side is simple. It's,
It is simple.
it comes down to, you know, we put the no parking signs up and if somebody violates the no parking problem,
Uh-huh.
the onus is on the person that violated it, not on the onus of, not on the city, right? It's just simple as that, you know? And when in time, the city actually gets its own police force and somewhere in the next 40, 50 years, that might be the truth of it. It isn't the truth of it today or in the next 20 years, you know? So we can't fix all those problems today.
You're right, but we can keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
Sure. This project is uniquely interesting to me because I live up on the hill there, so I would drive by it every day and ride by it on my bicycle every day, so I know what the slopes of that hill are like. Yeah, it's a bit. And, you know, it's interesting and, you know, I think you've got a good plan going there. I'd hope you could save some of the trees, but that's a variability that none of us can predict. If you can, you will. If you can't, you won't, you know, and that's the way that's going to go. A little interested on your intersection between Planix Place and 4th Street and the way that the road curves out there and what the, turning on to 4th Street from that would look like because that hill is so badly sloped and everybody comes down there much faster than they should because it's just that steep. You know, we're just going to have to work on that one, but I don't know. It's good. You know, it's a plan.
Yeah, well, that's all.
It's a plan and, you know, and that's,
what I'm saying.
it's a plan and we got to move forward with it. And it's a use for that property that probably can't stay in the state that it's in.
Absolutely.
So I am a little curious. What is the plan? Somebody can answer this for me. So far as the downslope side of that and everybody that lives on Ginseng and that, what's the drainage plan for that? I know it drains back and down, but won't they pick up some of that drainage that comes off that hill? Yeah, go ahead, just step out. Tyler.
So none of that is, oh, sorry, sorry. None of it's proposed to be modified at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know, halfway back through
Well, it's
lots.
still sloped in like that.
Go ahead. They talk.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is a little more informal.
So there's two drainage systems. There's one in the road that'll pick up the road and all the lots on the upper side of the road. And then
Sure.
there's a separate private roof drain system that runs on the backside of the lots on the downhill side.
Sure, the western side of it. yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that would pick up all the runoff from the lots on the,
Does that follow the property line or
it'll be close to the property line.
yeah,
We need, not only the storm drain line, but we need a sanitary line running back there too.
oh, yeah.
Multiple sanitary lines. So, yeah, there'll be an easement back there with,
Oh, I see.
multiple
Yeah,
pipes in it.
easement that runs. Oh, I see it now. I missed that. Question answered.
And on that same note, it looks like lot 5, 6, 7. They're kind of from the straight north around the west side there. All those utilities will drain into the private section of Panex Place, right? Because there should be enough side slope elevation rather than going into that westerly storm and sanitary easement.
Gonna get my map out and look at it. So I make
It
sure.
just looks like that easement you're talking about stops just after lot 4 at the hammerhead there.
Yeah, so lot 5, we have, draining into that private system. It goes up just to lot 5.
Okay.
Sanitary would go to the street.
Okay.
To Panex Place. But I'm assuming there's gonna be some drainage off the back of that lot that we'd want to pick up
Mhm.
on the backside. So we ran the pipe that far.
Excellent.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions while we have the engineer
That-
back up here?
That's it for me.
Okay. Excuse me. Tom,
I'd like to thank him and Bill for doing this. I did have a lot of questions and you guys did answer it. Thank you very much.
Bill, hang on just a minute here, okay? Tara, do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to add that, I appreciate that you took a different look at this from 27 lots originally down to 12. And providing hopefully a little bit different product for Estacada, whereas a lot of the stuff in the North City right now is fairly conventional and 5-foot setbacks and on the sides and 5,000 or 7,500 square foot lots. So a little bit different product for different people here in Estacada. And I think if it's done right, it'll be desirable for those. And if you can leave trees, that's great. If they inhibit the development, then that's understandable too. So
Sure.
Should we vote?
Well, we're there, so.
Bill, is it okay if we,
Say, I think I'd like to recognize Tom for being a very long-standing member of the planning commission and doing a great job. Thank you.
thanks, Bill.
Sometimes, huh?
All right.
I did say I would.
All right, let's go ahead and vote on this. We have a motion, we have a second, and as it stands, the motion is to approve of conditions as staff presented. The variance will be our decision, and then it'll move as a package to city council if necessary. So, all those in favor, please raise your right hand or
Yes,
say aye.
I,
Thanks, Tara. Motion carries. So this will move on to city council. Do we have a date for that?
December 9th, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
Should say on the separate part.
To,
December 9th.
not the Monday after Thanksgiving, but the one following that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate the public comment. It's great to have people in here interested in what's going on in the city of Estacada. We've largely been doing this in a silo in here,
Yeah.
not intentionally, but we don't get public
locked
comment,
the
and we
door.
appreciate people coming. So we do have one more public comment here, and I need to get my minutes to make sure I'm following the correct order. So we have Aaron Lamb, 3045 Northwest Campus Drive. Aaron, I don't know if you were here early on, but I read a little memo about statement presented at the hearing here. So we're gonna give you 3 minutes to talk. And at that point, the red light will flash and we will see what you have to say.
Thank you so much for your time today. I have a business at 3045 Northwest Campus Drive. I am a cannabis marijuana processor. I'm 29 years old, done everything myself and kind of worked my way up to owning my own business in this industry. This industry is tough. It is hard. But what I'm trying to do is open up a retail spot for my products, kind of what you would say like an outlet store or something like that, somewhere where I can present my products and basically my products only to the market. Currently, right now in the industrial park, there is a moratorium on marijuana retail, but any other business type that is in the industrial park is able to have, I think it's 30% of the space of their building as a sales floor or wholesale for their items. That is all that I am asking for the possibility to do, is have, in addition to my processing business, on my separate unit, have a retail business there. They're two separate addresses and two separate units, but I'm just trying to figure out the process to go about changing that if possible. But mainly because developing a retail location somewhere that is in the current zoning corridor for retail would require building a new building, and that would go against a lot of what the planning commission has developed in keeping the green spaces and everything like that as much as possible, which I am all for as well too. I would rather use the empty side of my building for something like that than go out and build something on a green pasture or chop down trees and do something like that to further commercialize Estacada. And also, I am set back from the main road there. I would hate to see, coming into Estacada, the first thing that somebody sees where currently the zoning is set for marijuana retail, that would be the first thing you see coming into Estacada off the highway, would be a cannabis retail. And I think that's not necessarily the best look for the city. I wouldn't personally want to see that coming into a small town. I think it's much better to have it offset in the industrial park, similar to how Troutdale does. They require all marijuana retail businesses to be in the industrial park there. It does, I would say, take away from business, but at the same time, it keeps it away from the city, keeps it away from children and everything else, keeps it tucked away. Thank you for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in and speaking before us. We haven't discussed this at the planning commission level in quite a while. And I frankly have lost track of where we are in the conversation. So could you maybe enlighten us a little bit on where the city stands on marijuana?
Okay, I missed the first minute of that. I had to step out. So
Is it
I'm
asking
guessing
about
that-
retail locations?
Asking about retail locations. Okay, so
But in the industrial side, I think that's what it was asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it within the
Sorry, I
industrial?
can stay up here.
Yeah.
I don't know the process. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, it is in the industrial park. We met previously.
Okay.
Moon Tower Pines is my
Okay.
business.
yeah,
I'm on the last building on Campus Drive there in the industrial park. Took
Okay.
over from the business that had previously failed there.
and you're asking about this is about where retail
Yeah,
locations are allowed.
currently I know
Right.
where it is zoned currently.
Right.
But that would require building a new building and taking up green space or going to the Estacada Bark guy and taking him out of his business, which I'm not necessarily sure that he wants to do either. So there's kind of that holdup there. And I do have 2 units on my building in the industrial park. So it's just adding a retail space to my current business. It's not a separate, business coming into there. I'm not leasing it out to somebody else. It would be me operating it as a 30% space, 30% of my space for sales, kind of how the industrial park was set up.
Right, so if I can give you kind of a overview, and this is my understanding of the process, or my understanding of why or how we ended up where we are with the restrictions as to where it is. When I came on about 2.5 years ago, it was kind of at the end of this process of trying to get council to agree on areas where it would be allowed. There's a lot of ideas that were floated, and where we ended up, it seemed like it was really hard to get to that point, and I would kind of be surprised if council was looking to open that discussion back up again at this point, but
And I don't think that would again, the only way that it would open it up for anybody else to open another retail business in the industrial park is if they had a cannabis space and they had a separate address to do
Mhm.
it, because you can't put a grow in the same space as a retail. You can't put a processing in the same space as a retail. They have to be at 2 separate addresses. And as far as I know, I'm friendly with most of the cannabis businesses in there, and nobody else has a second separate address in the industrial park in their building to use as that 30% space, because mine's
So-
attached at the same.
Aaron, for the sake of time and
I'm sorry.
you're totally fine with this conversation. I'm just trying to think that as far as the planning commission goes, it'll eventually come before us if it's something.
it would, yeah, it would require basic, I mean, I would recommend that you go to talk to city council.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because city council would then, if they are interested in taking this up again, they would direct staff to start working on code revisions.
Okay.
And then at that point, then it would come to
Okay.
planning commission. Yeah, so it's basically, we would need to be directed by staff
That's
to pick this back
okay.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go to city council with kind of a
Mhm.
report of everything and
Yep.
present
Yeah.
that to them. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
Okay. Commission comments? Commissioner Sager, do you have anything to add?
I just got a question. Okay, now, I don't know exactly, he's got them, but you got kids down there now. How the biggest, when we went through this thing before, they couldn't be right near a park and they had all this sticky stuff. Now, you got kids going in and out of that one thing now. Is that going to change that plan at all?
I imagine it probably has some added implications for
Well,
sure.
see, that's what I'm saying. So Alan needs to make sure he understands that And and then these guys, obviously gotta make sure the council knows what's going on down there, because I just found out about it, about the kids being down there now.
Well, it came before us. We approved it.
Well, I didn't reapprove the change. of
Right,
the
we approved the zoning
code,
change.
Not commercial,
No, it's a good point.
so. So, if I don't know, nobody else is going to know. Or you guys help, right? But no. But, if you just a person living in the city, I didn't know that changed. When did I move? Okay.
Commissioner Stahl, you got anything to add for the,
I'm good.
Commissioner Perkins?
I just, hearing that, I don't see how the city is not vulnerable to lawsuits, not allowing one particular kind of business to utilize their right to retail space that every other kind of business in that space can use. And in a town that has absolutely no rules about how close to a school or whatever, a bar or any other kind of liquor selling establishment can be, to have made the zoning so narrow for deliberately, we know from the conversations, made the zoning so narrow that there won't be any, that someone would have to literally build a new building to be marijuana retail. I said this at the time during the discussion, and I feel that way now. I don't see how it's not vulnerable to legal challenge, but that's not our problem tonight, I guess.
It will be.
All right, thank you. And I don't have anything else to add, so we're going to adjourn here at 3:43. Actually, before we do that, our next meeting,
Yes, December 18th. That's
on the
right.
docket then. Do we have?
I'm coming.
Oh,
Keeps
is
on
it
sending
just
me
that?
Notices and I say, I'm coming, but she never.
TBD. I mean,
Okay.
the date is held, but whether or not we actually need to do that, we will let you know very soon.
all right. If it's maybe, well, let's discuss it, because if we
Okay.
can push it and bunch it up with something. I don't-
That might be the thing. Yeah, that might be the move that
Okay.
we're making.
Sounds good. All right, thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate it.
What are we talking about?